I figured out why the Green Bay Packers offense can be so frustrating. And the good news is they have the power to fix it because they're the ones causing the problems.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you here on the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network. We're going to talk about Tucker Kraft because you may have forgotten how good Tucker Kraft is. We're going to do that on the show today. We're also going to check in on some players that could, if things break right, have a pivotal role in the 2026 season, at least when it comes to the Packers leveling up this year. But let's start with the offense. And I was inspired by a conversation. My friend Pat Doherty does the coaches rankings. And he went on a podcast talking about coaches, and they were actually picking slightly different exercise. They were picking coaches to start a franchise with, and Matt LaFleur got picked way too late. And it reminded me about the frustrations of this offense. And, you know, I was thinking, like, why is it that this offense, which is good every year, and even by efficiency rankings, elite, top 5 last year, 4th in EPA per play, why does it not feel that way? And the answer is because they don't always want it to feel that way. It doesn't seem like they always want to try to score 30. And after they seemed to take it easy on the Minnesota Vikings at home, it felt like they were just like, how many points do we need to score today? Can 15 get it done? 17 get it done? And I brought that up on the squad show, and Jeff Jagosinski was like, that's exactly what it was. And that is actually a thing that happens in NFL meeting rooms. The offensive coach in a game where they know the offense can't score will go to the defensive coordinator. This is Jags telling this and say, hey, how many do we have to get to? Remember, that was the Emmanuel Wilson game. They took the air out of the ball. The Packers, they beat the hell out of the Minnesota Vikings. But it felt like a game that they could have won 40-6, and they won 23-6. And in some ways, that's indicative of what we're talking about here. But the first half of the season, I came across this great stat. There's an NFL.com researcher that I follow. And he put out the stat about the teams that won the most games by scoring 21 or fewer, and the teams that lost the most games allowing 21 or fewer. The Houston Texans on both of those lists, which is a good indication of just how nasty that defense is. But the Packers lost 4 games last year when allowing 21 points or fewer. And the stat is actually just fewer than 21. Now, one of those is a Clayton Tune game, so let's put that to the side. 3 games like that would still put them in the top 5 in terms of the most games lost when your defense plays what is ostensibly well enough to win. But there is an inflection point in the season last year that speaks to this conundrum. And it was the Eagles game. Now, it started with the Browns game, where that was a game that they felt like was one of those, hey, Jeff Hafley, how many points do we need to win this week? And the answer was like 17, and they still couldn't quite get there. That was a game that they played scared. They played not to lose. They played like they just did not want to let Myles Garrett ruin the game, and so everybody else on that defensive front ruined the game. The Panthers game was another one where they were like, let's just try and get out of here, it seemed. And there was some weird vacillations even in that game where they were also like crazy aggressive for no reason, and a lot of weirdness in that game. But it culminated against the Eagles. They score 7 points in a game their defense only allows 10. And it's like, man, it cannot look like this. And you have announcers going, what are they doing? Why do they keep running the ball? When your passing game is as efficient as it is when they want to do it. Now, there was an inflection point, and it was that Eagles game. And coincidentally, and this will always stick in my brain, much like what Tom Brady said a couple years ago about this intermediate passing game. But Ben Solak, formerly of the Locked On Podcast Network, he said Matt LaFleur, maybe he wrote it, I can't remember, but he described it as Matt LaFleur coaches like he wants to be the 2024 Eagles. Just play good defense, run the ball, and don't let your quarterback beat you. And the difference is the Packers have Jordan Love. They don't have Jalen Hurts. They don't have a quarterback that they have to worry about coddling. They don't have a quarterback who is backpacked to 2 Super Bowls. They can just go play. And in Jordan Love's starts, after that Eagles game, the Packers scored 27 against the Giants in a game where they missed 2 extra points. They scored 23 against the Vikings in that aforementioned game. Then they scored 31, 28, 26 against Denver, the best defense in the NFL, on the road in a game where Christian Watson leaves in the third quarter. And then 27 with 7 points. This is the playoff game. 7 points lost to missed kicks. That game changed that Eagles game was an inflection point. But I am sympathetic to people who say, well, but the reason that they were so ineffective scoring points in those other games was Matt LaFleur. And that is unequivocally correct. It is rare. Now, the Eagles defense played well in that game too, but it is rare to watch a Packers game and go, man, the offense just doesn't have answers today. No, it's that the offense is either playing too conservatively or too sloppily. Now, that's not quite a Matt LaFleur problem. Like the penalties, the pre-snap penalties, the false starts, that kind of stuff, that's not the holding penalties. That's not a Matt LaFleur problem of intent. Now, it is ultimately a Matt LaFleur problem because the coach is responsible for those sorts of things, but it's not an intention. But this is a parallel point here. Because once again, it's not the defense doing something, especially pre-snap penalties, alignment penalties. Like this stuff just can't happen. And it happened all too often to this Packers team. But it's self-inflicted wounds. It's not, oh, hey, they just weren't good enough. No, this offense is good enough. They're good enough to score 27, 28, 30 points every week if they tried to do that. That has to be the intention. And it felt like after that Eagles game, Matt LaFleur changed the way that he called this offense. That it was much more aggressive. They were much more aggressive on 4th down in kick-go situations. They let Jordan Love off the leash. And look what happened. The offense rewarded that aggression. Like fortune favors the brave is not just something that is true outside of the football arena. It is 100% true in the arena. And now I'm talking about the actual football arena, not a metaphor. But the Packers have to want to do that. Matt LaFleur has to want to do that. And that's the thing. And that's what makes him, that's what makes this offense so frustrating is it's like, guys, we know you can do this. We see you do it. And when you don't do it, it's not because you're getting stopped. It's because you are either tripping over your dicks or you're being too conservative. And so I would much rather, like coaches always say, I would much rather a player make a mistake at 100 miles an hour than be too tentative. Here it is. This is the coaching version of that. Go down swinging. And I'm not saying throw the ball all over the yard every play. You don't have to get in the shotgun and throw it 50 times a game. I'm not advocating that. I don't think that's the best thing for almost any offense. But being one of the most run-heavy offenses in the NFL is just not tenable. Not with this offensive line, not with this group of running backs. It just doesn't work. Now, you know what would make that all a lot easier is having a full season of Tucker Kraft. And I think it has been lost to history, at least to date, how good Tucker Kraft was last year. And that's why him coming back is just such a big deal for this offense. We'll talk about it next. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and it's an important reminder that whatever you're carrying right now, you don't have to go through it alone. Life can feel overwhelming sometimes, whether it's stress, uncertainty, anxiety, or just trying to manage everything on your plate. And it's easy to feel like you need to figure it out by yourself. Therapy can be a place to get support, gain perspective, and talk things through with someone who's there to listen and to help. BetterHelp connects people with licensed therapists and makes it easier to get matched with someone who fits your needs and your goals. Mental Health Awareness Month is a good time to check in with yourself and really ask, how are you doing? BetterHelp has helped millions of people connect with licensed therapists, and the matching process is designed to help you find someone who works for you. Having someone with you, someone to listen and support you, can make a real difference. You don't have to be on this journey alone. Find support and have someone with you in therapy. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's betterhelp.com/lockedon. Don't forget to check out the Everydayer Club for ad-free episodes and access to a group chat with me and other Locked On Packers listeners. Just go to lockedonpackers.supercast.com or click the link in the show notes for more. Mina Kimes had this great stat that against man coverage, Tucker Kraft lapped the field last year in yards per route run, was twice as effective against man coverage as any other tight end in the league on a per route basis. And remember, coming into the year, we said this team has to find an answer for man coverage. Well, for half the season, without Christian Watson, it was Tucker Kraft. And those two played what? 2 games together? And that was like part of the Watson ramp up. Kraft is that guy. You want to play man coverage against the Packers. That means you got to have someone cover Tucker Kraft. And there just aren't many guys who can do it. I did a little more statistical digging. And I found last year, Tucker Kraft was the number 1 graded tight end by Pro Football Focus. He led all qualifying tight ends in yards per catch and yards per catch after he caught it. He averaged over 10 yards a catch against zone coverage just after the catch. He is a first down if you just throw him the ball. He finished 10th in touchdowns among tight ends, playing less than half a season, played 8 games and finished tied for 10th in touchdowns. Would have led the league, you extrapolate that over a season, would have led the league in touchdowns, or at least led tight ends in touchdowns. We're talking about a guy who is in the George Kittle, Brock Bowers, Trey McBride conversation. Now, I don't think this offense is built to get him 100 catches, but it doesn't have to be. But as we talked about and as we discussed before last season, when we, by the way, predicted this Tucker Kraft breakout, look at the 49ers. Their passing game runs through George Kittle. And you still need, the other guys to contribute. But this version of the Packers offense, where you are letting your best player be your tight end, and you are creating a passing game that is not funneled through necessarily, because I think that implies a force, but centered around the tight end, it can and does work. And if you go back, that 2019 offense, for example, yeah, that was the beginning of Deebo Samuel. He was a rookie. It was George Kittle who was really the engine of that offense. Emmanuel Sanders was there too, but it's George Kittle. And it was George Kittle before they had Deebo, before they had Ayuk, before they had Christian McCaffrey. That offense was built around the sui generis skill set of George Kittle. Well, the closest thing to George Kittle that exists right now, a guy who, like Brock Bowers, okay blocker. Trey McBride, not really a blocker. Tucker Kraft can do the blocking too. So now on first down, you can run the ball. which sets up your ability to play action pass, and he creates explosive plays. As I said, led tight ends in yards per catch. We're talking about someone who is a legitimate downfield threat, not just someone you're going to throw underneath to, but when you do throw underneath to him, he's going to make guys miss. He's going to run through guys. He's going to run away from guys. This is a special player. And, I don't want to over-index on a couple idiots on social media. But I'm still hearing from Bears fans like, oh, Tucker Kraft, just an okay player. Like, what are we talking about? He was on his way to be first team All-Pro last year. That's how good Tucker Kraft was last year. And when we talk about the geometry, not geography, geography kind of works. The geometry of an offense. Christian Watson's ability to create vertically, but usually, anyway, outside. Then you have someone in Jayden Reed who can create from the slot. He's excellent against zone coverage. Has always been the Packers' zone coverage beater. Christian Watson as a receiver has always been the man coverage beater. But now you have Kraft who can win in every kind of way. Whether it's as a blocker, whether it's split out wide, whether it's stretching the seam, whether it is plays after catch, just that little play action slide route, spit him out the ball and let him go make something happen. He can contribute in every facet of the game. As soon as 2026, we could be having the conversation that he is the best tight end in football because for 8 weeks last year, that's what he was. And that's proof of concept. Because we saw the glimpses. Second half of 2023, we start to go, whoa, wait a second. We thought Luke Musgrave was the guy. What if Tucker Kraft is actually the guy? And it took him, there was an adjustment period. Coming from, directional Dakota. And, he's playing 8-man high school football, playing running back. It was an adjustment early on. The physicality, well, then he adds weight, adds strength. 2024, we see the explosive possibilities, the big plays. The Rams game was one where you just go, wait a second. I'm not sure the Packers have ever had a tight end that could do that. And I'm including prime Jermichael Finley. That play action is like, I call it like mini leak, diet leak. It's not quite leak, but they sneak him back across the formation. And he goes rumbles for 70 yards. I don't think they've had a tight end that could do that like since I've been alive. And again, all due respect to Jermichael Finley, who before he tore his ACL was an absolute maniac. Like that Cardinals game, that Cardinals game is probably the best I've ever seen, the most dominant I've ever seen a Packers tight end at that point in time. And then Tucker Kraft against the Pittsburgh Steelers was even better. That Steelers game was outrageous. I mean, they could not cover him. And look what happened. I mean, Jordan Love, consecutive completions record, just lit up that Steelers team in the second half. And yeah, Jordan Love is going to give his guys a chance. There's going to be a YOLO ball here or there. But they're not 50-50 balls when it's Tucker Kraft. They're 80-20. He's 6'5", 250 plus. Can go up and get it. And he would have been even more productive last year if he didn't have issues with drops. He had a handful of drops where it's just sort of like, come on, guy. But then you see, okay, the touchdown against the Lions in coverage against Brian Branch one-on-one. The catch and run against the Steelers where he, like 5 guys bounce off him and he creates a 50-yard play just by sheer force of will and athleticism. He is a special football player. And so there's like this consternation about, oh, do they have a wide receiver one? Do they have that guy that can be the guy? Yes. It's 85. It's Tucker Kraft. And we spent way too much time worrying about Matthew Golden and Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs and Jayden Reed and Dontavian Wicks and all those guys. And it's just like, that's not it. The best pass catcher on the Green Bay Packers is Tucker Kraft. And not just because he's the best guy, It's not like dating the most attractive person at your office because they're at your office. Tucker Kraft is a model. Tucker Kraft is a legit dude. One of the most dynamic and valuable pass catchers in the NFL, or at least he was for half a season last year. Now, we will see the Jermichael Finley example is instructive because he came back and was just never quite the same. Now, that was also 15 years ago. Advancements in surgery, in recovery, in training, in sports science, in nutrition, all that stuff gives Tucker, I mean, we just saw with Christian Watson, gives Tucker Kraft an opportunity to come back and be the guy, but he's never, like, Finley was reliant on explosiveness in a way that Tucker Kraft just isn't. And I think, like, Kraft at 85% is not that dissimilar in terms of athletic ability to someone like Trey McBride. Now, what makes George Kittle special and Travis Kelce in his prime special and Jimmy Graham in his prime special and Gronkowski and those guys is they are those elite athletes. They're monstrous, they're strong, they're fast. And so you hope he keeps some of that explosiveness, but he's not someone that like needs to run a 4.3 or needs to jump 40 inches. He's smart, he's savvy. And his want to is as good as it gets. And when he's out there, they just have a different ceiling, a different upside. And then you add in Christian Watson. You add in what you hope is a little bit better pass protection to an offense that, as we said, is frustrating at times. But part of that is because they have players like Tucker Kraft. And it's like, don't forget you have 85. One of the easiest ways for this offense to score more points is to find more ways to get Tucker Kraft the football. Now, there are some other players, some wild card players. And we heard from the coaches on a couple of them. I want to highlight two. We'll do that next. The NHL playoffs are here where every shift matters, every moment is intense, and the pressure is at its highest. And just like performance matters on the ice, it matters off the ice too. You know what I'm talking about. That's where Rougiette comes in. Rougiette offers treatments designed to help you get ready and stay ready when it matters. Their top option, Rougiette Ready, combines clinically proven ingredients in a simple mint that dissolves under your tongue. It works fast, often in about 15 minutes, and can last up to 36 hours. They also offer Go Long, designed to help with both performance and control. It's all about confidence and feeling like yourself again. Head to Rougiette.com/LockedOnNHL to get 15% off your ED treatment. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNHL for 15% off. Rougiette Performance Medicine for Men. I don't want anyone to get their hopes up about Marshawn Lloyd. And when Ben Simmons, the running backs coach, was asked about Lloyd, he said the following: "We're very optimistic, but I've been optimistic before, so we just have to wait." That's about as honest as you're going to get from a coach when it comes to an injured player. Because we're talking about someone who has played a handful more NFL snaps than I have, than you have. And the talent is there. And apparently he looks really good. He's got a plan for his body. Like they're confident that this is the moment, but you can't get too ahead of yourself on all of that. Now, if this offense, which without an explosive runner last year was top 5, as I mentioned, it makes it much easier to play offense if you have a back like that. Even if he's just giving you 10, 12, 14 snaps a game. Because if he gives you 6 or 8 carries, and then you let Chris Brooks take some of the third and long stuff, that's enough that one of those could be an explosive. And that one explosive could be the difference between a field goal and a touchdown, or a punt and a field goal attempt. And that is often the margin for winning and losing in the NFL. He is one of the biggest wild cards on this team heading into 2026, precisely because his range of outcomes is so wide. Like legitimately, he could play 0 snaps for the Packers this season. He could just get hurt again and you don't have him. Or, he's in and out of the lineup and he plays 2 snaps here, 3 snaps there, gets hurt, and you can never quite rely on him, and he's essentially a 0 for you. Maybe that's the most likely outcome. But there's another outcome where he stays healthy and by the end of the year is RB1 on this team. Like, that's how talented he is. When Daniel Jeremiah was doing the draft and he was drafted a couple years ago, Daniel Jeremiah thought he was the best running back in the draft. That's the kind of talent that he has. And you watch him at USC and you see the gifts. You see the elusiveness. You see the explosiveness, the big playability, the passing game versatility. We saw that last year against the Colts. He catches that wheel, and if he doesn't blow a tire, he might score. But he apparently ripped the hamstring off the bone. And I don't laugh because it's funny. It's not funny, obviously, but it's just that's the kind of luck that he's had. Unfortunately, it's one of those laugh to keep from crying kind of laughs. It's absurdity that this has been what he has been cursed with. But he is that good. We're Josh Jacobs getting up there in age. If he's the Jamal Williams and Marshawn Lloyd is Aaron Jones, you could have one of the best backfields in the NFL. And that is also within the realm of possibilities. And look, one is far more likely than the other, but we're talking about a guy whose talent says, and talent in this offense, and gifts on this team relative to what the rest of the team has. He just has a skill set no one else in that running back room has. And to me, the other wild card is Chris McClellan. Because if he can just be solid for you, like a quality early down NFL nose tackle, it is a force multiplier for this team. Because it allows you to save the hits on Javon Hargrave, on Devontae Wyatt, and on Carl Brooks, so that on 3rd and 8, those guys can go eat. And Vince Ogabasi, who is someone that I thought for sure Jeff Hafley would take with him. Ogabasi was his defensive line coach at BC. It's possible that Matt LaFleur said, "You're not taking Vince." And what he said about Chris McClellan was even in just a couple days, he picked up what they were throwing at him from a technique standpoint, from a practice standpoint, new drills and different kinds of things. At this point, that's all we can really ask with a rookie's development, because we're not going to know, especially with the nose tackle. We're not going to know until the pads come on if he can play. What you want, and we've talked about this in every year, we say, okay, these are the things that you have to care about in minicamp, and they're the only things you're allowed to care about in minicamp because nothing else really matters. And what you want to hear is they're picking this up. They're ahead of the game. I'm impressed with how smart they are, with how fast they're getting it, with how fast they're acclimating to it. Because if you understand the techniques, if you understand what the expectation is at practice, the level of intensity, the level of precision that's being required, that is the thing that allows a rookie to grow, because every rookie has to grow, and puts them in a position to be successful as a rookie. Now, what does that look like? Like even a high-end upside outcome for Chris McClellan as a rookie is just probably a solid player. Like the odds of any third-round pick coming in and being highly impactful are just pretty low. But he doesn't have to be that. If he's just solid NFL nose tackle, if he's just not TJ Slayton in his last year in Green Bay because he was the number one defensive tackle, not just nose tackle, defensive tackle and run stop win rate. Like he was really good against the run, but more like what TJ Slayton was last year. That's a good player. What TJ Slayton was the year before when he was on the field, when he was healthy, like that is a useful NFL player. And if he is a useful NFL player as a rookie, they have the pass rush. Like I'm not worried about the pass rush. I think Devontae Wyatt is a very good pass rusher along the interior. Javon Hargrave, still a proven interior pass rusher. Carl Brooks was top 10 in pass rush win rate among defensive tackles last year. And I think if they need to, they can dial up some pressure looks. Edgerrin Cooper still a very good blitzer if they need him to be. And we know what Micah Parsons is. I'm comfortable with what Lucas Van Ness is. I'm optimistic about what Barron Sorrell and Denai Dennis Sutton can be. If Chris McClellan is what the Packers think he can be, and that was a player they thought was worth the 52nd overall pick, then suddenly your defense goes from being like, okay, yeah, they can be the 12th best defense, the 10th best defense, to like, no, they can be the 8th best defense. They can be the 6th best defense. And they can be. Even with the questions at cornerback, they can be. That's how good the spine of this defense is. That's how good Micah Parsons is. And I think Jonathan Gannon with Bobby Babich, they're going to be fine. But if Chris McClellan is the guy, that raises their ceiling a ton. All right, back tomorrow as we move through this off season. We got a Friday news dump coming for you. On Friday, we will have a Goodies Guys on Saturday in addition. So an extra show, basically 2 shows on Saturday, a Goodies Guys. I think we're going to do that for Saturday. And we could do it for next week too, but I think Saturday is a good time to do it. And then a Sunday OT with our pal Brandon Snide, all coming at you this week on Locked On Packers. Subscribe wherever you get podcasts, Spotify, on Apple Music, on Amazon, Google, wherever you get podcasts, you're going to find Locked On Packers. Subscribe on YouTube. We'll be live tonight on the Squad Show, talking Packers. Jacob Westendorf, Jason Herschel, and Brandon Snide. I will not be on that one, but I promise you we will still have a great time. Those guys have just been doing an awesome job, and you guys have been loving it, by the way. The numbers have been great. We've been getting nice live audiences. So excited about what we're going to continue to bring to you all off season. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Packers ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonpackers.supercast.com or click the link in the show notes to join. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 national NFL YouTube channel. On audio, make your second listen Locked On NFL, Locked On NFL Draft, Locked On NFL Scouting. We're here for you every day so you can stay Locked On Packers.